The night sky over Tehran did not warn anyone. One moment, the city hummed with ordinary life. The next, the air itself changed. Somewhere far out at sea, a hatch opened, and a clock started counting down to zero. What happens when two of the world's most powerful militaries decide to move at the exact same second? For decades, the relationship between the United States, Israel, and Iran has been defined by one word: tension. Iran's nuclear program, its support for regional militant groups, and its repeated confrontations with Israel have kept the Middle East on a knife's edge for years. Source: Council on Foreign Relations, ongoing coverage 2020-2026. By early 2026, that knife edge had reportedly reached a breaking point. According to multiple defense and intelligence outlets, a coordinated military operation, allegedly involving both American and Israeli forces, was said to have been launched against Iranian military infrastructure. The operation was reportedly referred to by Israeli officials as Operation Roar the Lion and by US sources as Operation Epic Fury. Source: Reuters, February 2026, reported, unverified at time of writing. What follows is what was reported, what remains disputed, and what it means for the world. It reportedly began not with jets, but with silence. In the hours before dawn, according to defense analysts and regional media reports, Ali Burke-class destroyers positioned in the Persian Gulf and northern Arabian Sea allegedly received launch orders. Their vertical launch systems opened. Dozens of Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, subsonic, terrain-hugging, nearly invisible to radar, reportedly lifted off and began their long flight toward Iranian soil. Source: Defense One, February 2026, reported, each missile was allegedly pre-programmed for a specific target. Their job was simple in concept, brutally complex in execution: arrive everywhere at once. Lower Third, Phase 1, Electronic Suppression and Cruise Missile Strike, reported, Feb 28, 2026. Simultaneously, according to reports, American electronic warfare assets began operating across multiple domains: air, sea, and reportedly space. The goal, as described by analysts, was to flood Iranian radar systems with false signals and corrupted data. Source: Breaking Defense 2026, alleged, Iran's air defense network, which includes domestically produced Bavar 373 systems and Russian-supplied S-300 batteries, reportedly began receiving ghost signals, false aircraft images designed to overwhelm operators and trigger responses to threats that did not exist. Source: Jane's Defense Weekly, Analysis 2025-2026. Sidebar: Electronic warfare, using signals and data to confuse an enemy's radar and sensors, without firing a single bullet. Alongside that electronic screen, hundreds of small aerial decoys were allegedly launched. Source: reported by regional defense analysts, February 2026. These miniature drones, designed to mimic the radar signature of fighter jets, reportedly lit up Iranian screens like a full invasion force approaching from multiple directions. While Iranian operators were reportedly focused on those ghost signals, something else was already moving through the darkness: fifth-generation stealth aircraft. According to defense reporting, both American F-35s and Israeli F-35s allegedly penetrated Iranian airspace undetected during this window. Source: Times of Israel, February 2026, reported B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, reportedly flying from Diego Garcia and possibly forward staging bases, were allegedly tasked with the deepest, most heavily fortified targets, specifically underground nuclear and military production facilities. Source: reported by multiple Western defense outlets, 2026, unconfirmed. Lower Third, Phase 2 stealth strike reported targets: Karaj, Isfahan, Kermanshah. Source: Reuters, Feb 2026. The reported targets stretched across Iran. Karaj, described as a hub of aerospace and defense industry. Isfahan, allegedly home to key elements of Iran's nuclear and drone manufacturing programs. Kermanshah in the west, where ballistic missile launch infrastructure was reportedly located. And Tehran itself, specifically, a zone near what analysts describe as the nerve center of Iran's government. Source: BBC Persian, February 2026, reported. Question: what would you notice first, the sound or the light? Israeli jets, according to reports, flew a flight path of between 930 and 1,240 miles each way, requiring mid-air refueling and alleged coordination through or around the airspace of neighboring countries. Source: Institute for the Study of War, Route Analysis 2025. The operation was reportedly structured in 3 waves. First, suppressing Iranian air defenses. Second, targeting ballistic missile infrastructure. And third, striking military manufacturing. Source, reported by Axios and Al Monitor, February 2026. Evidence and verification. INFOCRD, what we know versus unconfirmed. Here is where we need to slow down and be precise. What has been reported? Multiple Western and regional media outlets cited military and intelligence sources in February 2026, claiming a coordinated US-Israeli strike took place. Source, Reuters, AP, Times of Israel, Al Arabiya, February 2026. The operation's alleged name, Operation Epic Fury, was referenced in US defense circles according to those reports, while Israeli officials reportedly used the name Operation Roar the Lion. Source, Axios, February 2026. Reported, not officially confirmed by US or Israeli government at time of publication. What has been confirmed officially? At time of script writing, neither the US Department of Defense nor the Israeli Defense Forces issued a full formal acknowledgement of the operation's scope as described. Source, Pentagon press briefings, February 2026. Israeli officials have historically neither confirmed nor denied specific military operations until after the fact, a long-standing policy. Source, IDF official policy, publicly documented. Visual evidence card split screen. Officially confirmed, limited versus reported by sources, extensive, with outlet logos and dates. What was claimed regarding casualties and leadership? Iranian state media reported that Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was not present at his offices when strikes allegedly hit the compound near Tehran's government district. Source, IRNA, Iranian state media, February 2026. Conflicting reports emerged, with some Israeli-linked sources reportedly claiming Khamenei had been killed, while Iranian officials denied this claim. Source, Al Jazeera, BBC, reporting conflicting claims, February 2026. This remains, as of writing, unverified and disputed. Lower third, status of leadership claims, disputed multiple conflicting sources, treat with caution. Iran's reported response, which Iranian state media referred to as Operation Truthful Promise 4, allegedly included waves of ballistic missiles and drones targeting US military installations and allied bases across the region. Source, AFP Al Monitor, February 2026. Reported, the UAE's Al Dhafra air base reportedly sustained damage. Qatar's air defenses reportedly intercepted incoming threats, and air raid sirens were reported across Israel. Source, Gulf News, Times of Israel, February 2026. Conflicting views and gaps. Not everyone reads these events the same way. Some analysts argue this was a pre-planned, long-coordinated operation years in preparation, a decisive move to degrade Iran's military capacity before it could cross a nuclear threshold. Source, Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Analysis 2026. Others contend that the strike, if it occurred as described, represents a dangerous escalation that could pull the broader region and potentially global powers into a wider conflict. Source, Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, February 2026. There are also significant information gaps. The full extent of damage to Iranian infrastructure has not been independently verified. Iranian state media has historically controlled and shaped the narrative around military events on its soil. Conversely, some reports from Western outlets relied on unnamed defense officials, which introduces its own limitations in verification. The fate of senior Iranian leadership, as stated, remains genuinely unclear. One additional uncertainty, the legal and diplomatic framework. Under international law, a preemptive strike of this scale raises serious questions about sovereign jurisdiction and the laws of armed conflict. No formal declaration of war has been reported. Source, UN Charter, Article 51, Legal Framework Context. How that legal question resolves, if it is ever formally addressed, remains open. Human impact. Behind every reported target, there are people. Residents in multiple Iranian cities reportedly described hearing explosions, seeing flashes of light, and losing power for extended periods. Civilian infrastructure near targeted areas was allegedly affected, though the full scope of civilian impact, injuries, displacement, loss of services, had not been fully reported at time of writing. Source, BBC Persian, Reuters, February 2026. Every military strike, regardless of its intended precision, lands in a world where people live, work, and sleep. Across the broader region, millions of ordinary people in Israel, the Gulf states, Iraq, and beyond spent that night watching skis, listening for sirens, and waiting for information. Families near US military bases in Bahrain and Qatar reportedly sheltered in place as alerts went out. Source, US CENTCOM Communications, reported, the human experience of conflict is rarely captured in maps or military briefings. It lives in the hours of not knowing. Why it matters. Think of Iran's air defense system like a security camera network protecting a building. The moment you cut the power to the cameras and flood the security office with static, the guards are blind. That is, in plain terms, what electronic warfare reportedly did here, not with bullets but with signals. Sidebar time on target, a military tactic where weapons fired from different locations at different times are calculated to arrive at the same moment, maximizing shock and preventing response. The concept of time on target is not new. Militaries have used synchronized strikes since the Second World War. What is new is the scale of technology enabling it: stealth aircraft that evade radar, cruise missiles that hug terrain, decoy drones that mimic entire squadrons, and electronic systems that reach from satellites in orbit down to a radar screen in a bunker. The reported operation, if it occurred as described, represents what analysts are calling one of the most technologically layered strikes in modern military history. Source: Center for Strategic and International Studies, 2026 analysis. The broader stakes reach far beyond Iran and Israel. Russia and China are watching how Western military technology performs in this environment. Smaller nations are recalculating their own defense doctrines. And the international diplomatic order, already strained, faces another test of whether institutions like the United Nations have meaningful tools to respond to events of this speed and scale. Mini recap. Here is what the reporting tells us. A major coordinated military operation involving US naval and air assets and Israeli air forces allegedly struck multiple military and strategic targets across Iran on or around February 28, 2026. Iran reportedly responded with missile and drone attacks on regional US bases. The operation's full scope, its precise outcomes, and the status of senior Iranian leadership remain disputed or unverified. What we do not know: the confirmed casualty count, the verified physical damage to Iran's nuclear infrastructure, and whether this represents a contained operation or the opening phase of something larger. That last question may be the most important one of all. What's next? Scenarios. Visual, three-path diagram, branching roads labeled Scenario A, B, C. The most likely near-term outcome, according to regional analysts, is a period of intense but bounded retaliation, Iran striking US and Israeli-linked targets through proxies and direct missile fire, while both Washington and Jerusalem manage escalation thresholds carefully. Confidence level, high. Source: International Crisis Group, February 2026 projection. A second possibility is a broader regional escalation, one that draws in Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthi forces in Yemen, and potentially strains US relationships with Gulf partners who prefer stability over confrontation. This scenario is assessed as possible but not inevitable. Confidence level, medium. A third, lower probability scenario involves direct great power involvement, Russia or China taking steps beyond diplomatic protest to support Iran's position, whether through intelligence sharing, weapons supply, or economic shielding. Most analysts currently consider this unlikely in the immediate term but worth monitoring. Confidence level, low. Source: RAND Corporation, Regional Escalation Modeling 2025-2026. Every conflict in history has a turning point, a moment where the map changes and the world recalculates. Whether this is that moment, only time will tell. If you want to understand the full history of US-Iran tensions and how decades of decisions led here, our next video walks through every major flashpoint, from 1979 to today.